Every time I make one of these videos, I kind of feel like the prodigal son returning home, tail tucked firmly between my legs. That, or I feel like the super hot aunt that turns up once a year with presents and gifts. And my gift to you is a roundup of some of my favorite books of the year. I personally think I have impeccable taste, so actually is a present for me to give you guys these recommendations so that you too can have impeccable taste. So, here it is, the official 2024 roundup of my favourite books. I read 100 books in 2024, mostly romance and literary fiction with a little bit of nonfiction in there. Every year I convince myself that I'm going to read more nonfiction books. Every year I fail. Maybe I should quit, but Mama didn't raise no quitter. So we go again in 2025 and we'll read more nonfiction books. Touch wood. I did a lot of my reading as physical copy books. I think about 42% of my books were read physically. I think about 35% were read on my Kindle, and the rest were consumed on audio. Those were the nonfiction books. I read pretty much every single nonfiction book on audio this year, I think. My best reading month was May. I read 13 books in May, but I think it's because I did a lot of traveling in May, so I was between airports and planes and everything, with not a lot to do besides twiddle my fingers, and BA's film selection gets boring after a little while, so I think that's why I read a lot of books. Of the 100 books I read, I think I gave 12 of them 5 stars, but because I like a nice round list, I'm just going to share with you guys my top 10 of those 12. If you're interested, the 2 honourable mentions that just miss out on this list are Evenings and Weekends by Oisin McKenna and Only for the Week by Natasha Bishop. Starting as I typically do every year, we're going to start with nonfiction, and my first favourite nonfiction book from this year is this one, which is Doppelganger by Naomi Klein. This was recommended to me by my friend Hannah, and I'm so glad that I do take her reading recommendations on board because she also has impeccable taste like me, so I really enjoyed this. Naomi Klein has a doppelganger, one that is an avid pusher of conspiracy theories online and really integrated in that writosphere part of the internet. Engaging with the idea of the doppelganger both in popular culture and academia, Klein uses it to determine why society has taken such a vicious swing towards false narratives, mis- and disinformation. This is a really thoughtful and intimate narrative that offers a thorough shakedown of the most surreal parts of modern life and offers an explanation as to how everyday people are just being consumed in really insidious ways online. The next book is Revolutionary Acts by Jason Okundaye. This was one of my most anticipated reads for 2024, and I'm really glad that it didn't disappoint. This is a historical account constructed around the lives of several Black British gay men living in and around the Brixton area of South London. In each chapter, Okundaye takes the reader on his journey on discovering how this older generation created a community and founded a counterculture. This is an oral and cultural history just done really, really well. It is a portrait of these several Black men and their activism, showcasing in very raw terms the kind of complexity and challenges that were kind of being gay in the 1900s in Britain, but also the love, the hopes, the hard work, and the impact that they've had over the several decades. The next book is Where We Come From, Rap, Home and Hope in Modern Britain by Anafiek Ekpokdum. This is honestly sublime storytelling. It leans into a socio-political history of Britain to construct this really interesting narrative as to the origin of UK rap and grime. Ekpokdum draws upon the realities of how pirate radio, violent trauma, fatherlessness, poverty, illness, unemployment, displacement, disenfranchisement, and so many other factors have conspired together to produce some of the most powerful pioneers of a DIY genre. Well worth the read if you're really interested in music. The final non-fiction book that I have as a favourite is this one, which is This Always This Year on Basketball and Ascension by Hanif Abdurraqib. This is almost part memoir, part biography. This follows both Abdurraqib's life and also that of LeBron James, as the both of them are born 1 year apart in Cleveland, Ohio. This is a really wonderful book about the emotional politics of place, what it means to honour and be honoured by our hometowns when we leave, and the demons that we may have to face and reckon with when we return. This is so interesting and told in such a wonderful way that builds with rhythm and pace and feels like a basketball game. Okay, moving on to my fiction student favourites for this year. The first one is this one, which is The Rachel Incident by Carolyn O'Donoghue. This is a book that follows Rachel, a 21-year-old university student who kind of lives with her co-worker James, and she becomes infatuated and enamored with her English professor at university. And so over the year, Rachel and James just become super enmeshed in the life of Dr. Byrne and his wife Deanie, with secrets and tensions mounting amongst the group. Rachel is not always likable. Some of her behaviour is very cringy and definitely questionable, and yet I couldn't look away. The Rachel Incident is a wonderful story about friendship and love and everything that falls in between growing up. It is earnest, it is messy, it is class conscious. It is pretty much the perfect coming of age story. The next one is a pretty rogue one, and one that I didn't think I would like when I initially started reading it, but I honestly loved it so much, and it is this one, which is Perfume and Pain by Anna Dawn. This is a book that follows Astrid, who is a millennial writer who is in the middle of being cancelled after one of her book events goes wrong. And so to kind of ride out the wave of her cancelling, she hovels down in this house in LA, and she goes back to her roots, to this kind of online Zoom writing group that she started way back in the day called Sapphic Scribes, where she meets Ivy, who is this PhD student who kind of is really everything Astrid kind of used to be or kind of wanted to be when she was younger. She's also kind of dealing with her new neighbour, Penelope, who is this Gen X artist who is really nosy and feels too comfortable just barging into Astrid's house. This is a book for the messy, unbothered girlies. It is a book about addiction and substance abuse, but also about love and growing up and changing society. It is super camp. It is very brat summer. I didn't expect to love it, but I did. The next book is this one, which is If an Egyptian Cannot Speak English by Noor Nagar. This is a really interesting book written in 3 sections that almost feel independent but still connected. It follows the unnamed narrator, who is a American-born Egyptian woman who kind of returns back to Egypt in the post Arab Spring society to kind of reconnect with her roots, and there she meets the man from Chakrabat and they begin this relationship. This is a really interesting novel that explores themes of power, abuse and communication through a lens of this very complex relationship between these two individuals living in Cairo. I really, really enjoyed this, and the 3rd section especially, Chef's Kiss. Now, obviously, it wouldn't be a list from me complete without some romance, would it? You didn't expect anything less, did you? And for this, I give you Big Fan by Alexandra Romanov. This is a novella that I read in December, and it blew my socks away. You want to know why? They're simply not writing fun, good rom-com novels like this anymore. I was giggling and kicking my feet. Enjoyed it so much. This is a book that's a debut book, actually, from a fiction company called 831, and they specialise in modern romance fiction, and I'm so excited to kind of get more into their books. But in Big Fan, we follow Maya, who is a political strategist who's just gone through this pretty big scandal divorce with her ex-husband, and we also follow her teenage crush Charlie, who was in this boy band that Maya used to love when she was younger. And so we watch Maya kind of starting over late in life to kind of mend her reputation and continue her career in the political consultancy strategy world, and also kind of the battle between choosing herself and choosing love. This is a book for the girlies that loved Scandal and One Direction. No, I will not elaborate any further. The final book is potentially my favourite book that I read this year, which I think is a really bold statement, and I think one I'm gonna stand 10 toes down behind, and it is this one, For Such a Time as This by Shani Akila. This is a stunning short story collection that celebrates Black love, friendship and community during the pandemic. These are interconnected short stories that weave through together very beautifully to kind of explore vital topics such as sickle cell, endometriosis, microaggressions in the workplace, and just so many more themes that kind of run through Black British community. In this book, Shani Akila delivers a heartwarming portrayal of contemporary young Black British life in this debut as well. This is just a work that feels so carefully and lovingly written that it almost does feel like a love letter to a community. I really adored a lot of the books that I read this year. I feel like I'm becoming like increasingly more aware of like my taste and what I like, and I think this is a really good snapshot as to like who I am as a reader. I'm hoping 2025 brings more good books, more good vibes, more like feet kicking romance, more coming of age stories, more just really interesting slice of life stories as well. So that is the plan for 2025. I will see you back here next year to talk about my favourite books of 2025. And also, I've been making lots of short form content on the app where short form video content lives. I've been really enjoying it. If you're American, it might be disappearing, so I don't know why I'm redirecting you there. But if you're ever missing my face on here, you can probably find it in portrait mode. I was trying to think. If you're ever missing my landscape face, you can probably find it on portrait mode. I'll have the details in the down bar below. And you can also catch up with me on Instagram. I'm usually pretty active over on there. So if you're ever missing me, that's where I'll be. That's where I expect to see you. And I hope you have had a wonderful new year. I hope that work, if you're back at work, isn't kicking your butt too badly. And yeah, I'm gonna head off, skedaddle. I'll see you when I see you.